Hey guys, Tyson Popplestone here, and you're listening to the Relaxed Running Podcast. Super excited to kickstart this brand new podcast with one of Australia's best ever 800, 1500 metre runners, Luke Mathews. I was stoked to have the opportunity to be able to sit down with him and just find how Luke likes to prepare himself for competition. I think some of the really interesting points in this chat, especially for me, was just the psychology of performance, how he deals with the pain that inevitably comes with some of the races that we find ourselves in. I wanted to find out about training and what life is like for an elite level athlete. I think this is a really good chat because Luke has a great capacity to simplify some of the more complex issues around running, and I tried to delve into some of those themes with him. Luke is an Australian 800 metre bronze medalist from the Commonwealth Games just last year here in Australia. It was an incredible race. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to jump on YouTube and watch his crazy kick for home. He's run 145 for 800 metres. He's run 335 for 1500 metres. The guy can move. He's a really interesting, a really well thought out kind of character, and I think to kickstart this podcast I couldn't have asked for a better guest. So I hope you enjoy the chat as much as I did. I'll get out of your way. This is me and Luke Mathews. Thanks for coming on.
No worries.
It's good to have a chance to sit down with you. It's interesting, man. Like, the running scene's an interesting scene because, as I said, you're like 8 years younger than me. So you would have seen me running around. I would have seen you running around as a junior. But it's funny how all of a sudden you run 145 or whatever you've run now, and all of a sudden people my age start paying attention. Yeah. What's the journey been like over the last... How many years you've been running internationally for now? Because it's been pretty fun to watch you do it.
So 2014 I went to World Juniors. Wait, we're recording now?
Yeah, we're on.
Okay. So I went to World Juniors 2014. And then, so that was my first, I suppose, international competition. It's not, it's still juniors, but still, you got to, wear the Australian vest for the first time. And then 2015, I started training with Nick, and then he took me overseas. I went and did the American altitude, Europe that year, spent about 7 weeks in Europe and raced a handful of times. And then 2016 was kind of where I qualified, made the Olympics, and I suppose, became what you call a professional athlete, I suppose.
Yeah. It would have been exciting starting to get the chance to run around with Nick and the boys that were in his group. Is Gregson your age, or is he a bit older?
No. Gregson's, he's 1990 born. So he's 5 years older than me, yeah.
Oh, so he's like a mentor in those early years to you, was he?
Yeah,
or how did that sort of come about?
Well, I feel like for me as a runner coming through, the first person I looked up to, I felt like was Mottram.
I was really hoping you were going to say my name just then.
And you, of course, yeah.
Standard.
So I feel like being an Australian, the person you look, I feel like even Americans looked up to him was Mottram. So
yeah.
And then around that kind of 2006, 2007 to 2008, not that I wasn't looking up to Mottram by any means, but started looking up to Gregson because he was the guy. He was the young guy coming through, breaking his records, and then I met him in 2006 and kind of followed him from then on, and he became my idol and inspiration in running. And then by 2015 I was training with him. So
was it strange? Like when I can imagine. So Mottram too. I'm 32. Mottram must be pushing 38, 39 now.
He's 1980 born. So he'd be 39.
39. Far out. Jeez.
Yeah.
He's pushing. Actually, I have to give him a hard time about that because once you hit 40, he's not running too fast anymore. But
no.
I used to look up to him as well, and it was really strange because later in my career, when I was thinking, far out, okay, this isn't going. I'm no Lukey Mathews. This isn't working as well as I was hoping. I started to train with his group, and it's a weird vibe going from looking at these guys from a distance to sort of rubbing shoulders with it. How was that with Gregson and the boys and what Collis would have been around?
Yeah. So I feel like I joined the group at a really good time. I officially joined it in February of 2015. First session I went down to Waverley Track and I started training with I think my first session was with Brett Robinson and Ryan Gregson.
Yeah.
So two blokes that I was good friends with, but
Yeah.
also at the same time, two people that I looked up with. And then, for the next, I trained under Nick for close to 3 years. So for the next 3 years, I pretty much got to train with those guys just about every session. But at the same time, coming through, there was Collis Birmingham, there was people from like internationally, like Andy Vernon, Mike Ekval, people like that. And then I came through with this good crop of people like Sam McEntee, Stuart McSwain, Kevin Batt. There was just I don't know, I feel like tail end of 2015 through 2016, there was just this really good group of people coming through, and training was made pretty easy to just sit on the back of those guys and just get it done.
What do you think it is about the Melbourne Track Club that in particular that just draws? Obviously, the draw card of Badeau and what he can offer his athletes is a really helpful thing. But it seems, even looking at I used to hate looking at your social medias because I'd just sit there going, oh, far out, look at this. Like, this is, if I just ran 145, like, you'd be a part of a really solid training group. But it looks like it was more than just running from the outside perspective. But you look like a good group of mates, and there was something else going on beneath the surface, maybe.
Well, I suppose the lure of Nick and MTC to begin with is that there's not many people in Australia that get the opportunities that those athletes do. Like, there's no one. If you're a 331 guy, or if you're 335 and even 336, you kind of can make relationships with people where you can, find a manager overseas and, get into races, and they can set up a training camp or whatever. But, when I joined Nick, I was a 343 guy. Was it 343? Yeah, 340. I ran, So
how old were you there?
19. So I ran 340 my first race in Europe just after I turned 20. I joined Nick as a 147 or 148 and 343. And, he said, I'll be able to get you in this race in Europe. I'll be able to get you this race in America. And it's like, there's not many people, one, in the world, or definitely in Australia, but also in the world, that can just give you opportunities and say, hey, you're not that good at, you're an all right runner, but I'm going to get you training with the best in Australia, and we're going to get you in some races overseas. So there's not many people that get to do that. So he's the opportunities that he presents and creates is, it's unrivaled in Australia, I suppose. And then as well as that, the group is just, it's. There's in Australia there's that of course MTC don't win every race, but in terms of a collective, they do have the best athletes. So, if you get a young kid that says, hey, do you want to go train with a Ryan Gregson, Brett Robinson, Stuart McSwain, Genevieve Lacaze, if you're just a young kid who just loves athletics, you're going to take that opportunity and take it with both hands. So, and then as well as that, I feel like training with that group, I enjoyed my time on the track equally as much as I did off the track with those guys, because they're all good dudes. And like, for example, Brett, I was I feel like he's 4 years older than me, but I feel like we just had very different personalities, but we were we got along really well, and he spoke at my 21st. So
did he? Yeah.
So it's like I feel like it was. It was great for relationships off the track.
That's really cool. He's one of my favourite blokes to follow on just any social media. I love his talk game.
He's good,
my favourite one, what was it? He won, what's that road race in Adelaide? It's like a 12 Bay.
City
to Bay. And his caption was just like, I'm the Winx of Australian road running.
Yeah,
he's got to be
he's a funny man. That's the type of thing. Like we just got on really well, and just stuff like that. Like, I just love that stuff. So.
Yeah, and what about Big Stewie? He seems like he's breaking the mold. I know him from. So he used to train with Rod Griffin.
Yeah.
Back up in Ballarat, and when I was training with him, he was 14. And I don't know if you know Jack Davies, but Jack Davies was.
They were in. So we're all 95 born. So
okay.
So I've competed against Stewie since I was like 10 or 11, and Davies, I feel like he was maybe a little bit later, but I've been competing against Davies since maybe like 13 or something like that. So like me, Jack Rayner, Jack Davies, Stewie, I'm trying to think, like Jake Birtwistle was in the triathlon, and Morgan McDonald was a year below us. But like, we had this group of people that have been. So Stewie, like he, I've been competing against him for so long, and he's been around for so long, and now he's just this, he's easily the best in Australia, but he's becoming the best. He's one of the best white guys in the world, and he's becoming one of the best 15 5K runners out of anyone.
Yeah, well, did you pick that with a bloke like Stewie? Because he's that kind of guy. I remember once I was running around Victoria Park in Ballarat and I was just having an off run.
Yeah.
And he would have been 12 or 13. Yeah. And I was probably half an hour into an hour run going, mate, I just want to be at home on the couch. This is not feeling great. And I saw Stewie in the distance just gliding along, just floating. And maybe like memories just inflated it a little bit. But I've got this memory of Stewie. And I remember looking at him that day going, he can actually move all right.
Yeah.
And it was the first, I'd seen him run a lot. But just in that place that I was at that day, I thought, far out, like maybe there's a little bit there. I can say that with confidence now because he's run 3:31 and whatever.
But if he ended up retiring, you would have said, I see why. Yeah. Well, I mean, once again, been running against Stewie for a long time. And if you had said when I was 14, 15 that Stewie will eventually be a 13:05 runner and a 3:31 dude, mind you, by the time this podcast gets released, he might have run bloody sub 13 and sub 3:30. So if you were to tell me that, he will eventually run 3:31, 7:34 and 13:05, I would have said, you're absolutely dreaming. But on that was him as a gangly, awkward-looking 15, 16, even 20-year-old. But if you had said that he would be hitting close to those marks when I was training with him, so, 2015, 16, 17, he trained at this, like, ridiculously high level where, in the group of people when I was there, Collis, Ryan, Brett, I'd say that Stewie was probably training better than those guys. Like, if we were to go do a really hard, 5K, 10K type session where we do laps and laps and laps on the track, Stewie would be the last one to drop. Yeah. And these are Ryan and Brett and Collis. They're tough bastards, and they don't drop in training. But Stewie would normally be there until the very, very end. And I just remember thinking, this guy trains at this ridiculously high level. Almost he was when I was there. He probably used to train better than Brett. But Brett made when I was there, he made a world indoor final and an Olympic final. But Stewie wouldn't even make the team, wouldn't even qualify. Didn't even. I think his PB in 2016 was maybe 13:30 or something like that. So I was just thinking, something doesn't like add up.
Yeah.
And then 2017, he had a couple of good races and he started to get that confidence. And then 2018, he just got this confidence and just thought, you know what, I am the fucking fittest. I'm the best. And then he just took his running to a whole new level. So, I think the original question was, would you have expected Stewie McSwain? Maybe not 15, 16. And then probably went around when he was like 21, 22, I would have said, I think that he's underperforming in races. And now I just think I'm not even going to say he's overperforming. He's just a beast. Like I'd be shit scared to race him. But like, for example, like Monaco Diamond League and London Diamond League when he ran the 5K and the 1500, I was like genuinely excited to be like, fuck, I'm like pretty excited to see what this guy can run. But he was running a 1500. That's my event. So like, I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, shit, yeah, like I want this guy to like break the Australian record, run sub 330. And I'm just thinking, actually, fuck, I gotta maybe race that guy in the national 15 final next year, or maybe the world champs final. Like, it's so, but yeah, he's a different animal at the moment. He's a beast.
Have you raced Monaco?
Yeah, I raced Monaco in 2016 in the 800, ran shit house.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah,
I was going to say, it seems like there's something special about that track.
Just not in 2016.
2016 was an off year. Word on the street was anyone who ran there in 2016 wasn't going to have a cracker.
Yeah.
But Gregson ran his 1500 Aussie record there, didn't he?
Yep, and Deng ran his 800
Bro, we got to get you back there.
Deng and Alex Rowe both, Rowe equalled the Australian record, but Deng broke the Australian record both in Monaco, yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. We say 3:31, and what have you run for 15?
3:35.
3:35, but yeah. I reckon with your 800 metre speed that you've got, if you get in the right race, there's...
Yeah, I think 1500, though, it's one of those things where, like, the opportunity to run quick...
That's true.
It's just... I'm not going to say there's a lack of opportunity. It's just to get it right, and, I think for... 3:35, it's like 57.5 per lap or something like that, around that mark. To get that consistently and to be able to get someone a front run or pace a 1200 in, to go through in like 2:53 or whatever it is, it's pretty hard to do. Like it's hard to find people that can set it up. So, That's why obviously the Diamond Leagues are really good because, they have world-class paces and they have people that are there to run quick and to try win. So that's why you have all these people running ridiculous times. But in the races underneath, some of the ones that I did in Europe this year, it's pretty hard to get a race which is perfect for you as well. So it's, look, Europe didn't go as well for me as well as I would have liked this year, but I'd like to think going forward that, with a bit of my 800 pace and I got a decent aerobic backing that, I don't know if I'd run 3:31, but I'd like to think that I'd probably get, down to hopefully.
Bro, I'm backing you.
Yeah,
I'm backing you.
I'm not going to rule it out. Not going to rule it out, but I'd like to think that I'd probably be somewhere around that. 32, 33, 30. Hopefully, definitely 34, but it's a bit quicker than 35. Hopefully,
yeah. So we're back in. What is it now? It's August, mid-August, and World Champs coming up in about 6 weeks. You said.
Yeah. So I think they start on Grand Final Day, which is the 28th of September. So I've got about a month and a half to go.
Yeah. So we sort of talked about this a little bit before we press record, but I always find it interesting just looking at the way that athletes organise their European circuit and the lead up to big events. And some people like to spend all their time in Europe. Some people like to mix and match a little bit. But you've obviously come home for a couple of weeks break. So what's the plans for you leading into World Champs? What are your movements until then?
So my plan this year was to run the 1500. I kind of decided that pretty much at the start of the year. I kind of, it's weird. I won a medal at the Com Games last year, but I always at the 800. But I always, I've been to the Olympics for the 800. I've went to World Juniors for the 800, but I always kind of saw myself as a 1500 meter runner. So I thought 2019 and then leading into 2020, I'll give the 1500 a crack. And I ran it was weird, my first 800 of 2019, I ran the World Champs qualifier and, beat the Australian record holder, beat, every 800 meter runner in Australia pretty much. I thought, shit, that's pretty good. And then focused on the 1500 for nationals and won that. And I thought, all right, 15's going to be the one I'll focus on. And didn't end up going the way that I would have liked. I missed the qualifier by 0.03, which is pretty annoying. I would go in on roll down, but three people have the qualifier: Stewie, Gregson, and Ramsden. So I'm not going to be able to. I don't think I'm going to be able to go unless one of those three pull out.
Yeah.
And then I kind of suppose I had to lean on my backup plan of the 800. So I was fortunate enough to run that qualifier back in March. So I kind of made a decision in Europe that I was going to stay until my plans were kind of changing when I was in Europe, and I originally said that I was going to stay in Europe until I run the time. But then I got to a point where I was just pretty cooked. Not my body, I was physically fine. I was just mentally a bit checked out. And then I just said to Mum, there was one more race on August 3rd, and I just said to Mum, I just go, look, I'm I just don't know if I can keep running. It's also one of those things. It's kind of it's like when you miss a time or something like that, it's pretty heartbreaking as well, and you just lose a bit of confidence and stuff like that. So I just said to Mum, let's just draw a line at August 3 and then go home, because I was originally meant to go to Flagstaff after Europe to prepare for Worlds, but I just said to Mum, I was like, no, I need to come home. And I ran on August 3, ran about 3:37, didn't get the time, and then plans have changed, and now I'm focusing on the 800. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm trying to get a bit of because when you're racing, you kind of lose a bit of fitness. So I'm trying to just get my aerobic engine up a little bit, whilst also getting those fast twitch fibers quicker and trying to get a little bit quicker sprinting and hills and stuff like that.
Yeah, nice. But let me rewind the clock just a little bit, because I watched that 800 metre race at the start of the season. I think it was yesterday, just to get a little bit warmed up for Luke Mathews today. Can I say, as impressive as the 800 metre race was, the celebration was a lot better. This is one thing MTC do well, I reckon. You guys seem to pride yourself on.
I'm not with them anymore.
Oh, well, okay, sorry, but you're from that crop, so I'm going to say from that crop, I've seen some bloody good celebrations come out. What is it when you run 145 as a season opener? I'm super interested to speak to you about your mindset and things like that, because I know as much as physical talent's a huge thing, it seems to be the best athletes who can somehow just commingle that physical ability and that mindset. And I've seen you time and time again, that 800 metre race, Aussie National 1500, just do both of those things. Is there anything in particular? I can imagine young athletes, I know me at 14 would love to hear from an Olympic athlete, just speak about preparing for an event like that. So to be able to step up to the track and just switch that mindset
Yeah.
on to a degree where you can go, okay, it's time to fire. How is it that you prepare for something? Is it something that comes naturally to you, or is it something that you've been working on for a long time to improve?
Yeah, I mean, it's never easy because I feel like anything that's going to get you that excited and that hyped up and has an emotional connection, you're going to have a fair bit of feeling to it. So, when you really want something, at the same time, you're going to be incredibly nervous about it and you're going to have a lot of doubt and stuff like that. So, when I was younger, I used to be really bad with my nerves and, I used to sometimes let it get the best of me. And I remember races back in the day, like Little Athletics, I was so nervous. I used to, Little Athletics, like racing kids from Werribee, like, just like kids that, not that they weren't good, but just, I was 10-year-olds. Like, I used to like try hide in the toilets to like not run and pretend I was sick and this and that.
Yeah.
And, so I definitely used to struggle with like, the mental side of things and the nerves and stuff like that. But, I think for me personally, it's just a lot of practice, I suppose. Yeah. And I suppose it's trying to like, outweigh the cons of racing with pros. So, why do I do it and, what do I want to get out of it and stuff like that. So, I suppose another thing as well is like, yeah, I've seen like, a fair bit of like sports psychologists. So, yeah. I speak to one through Athletics Australia and the VIS now. So I speak to him probably once every couple of weeks, once every few weeks. But yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is I'm a big confidence guy. So if I'm racing well, training well, and coach or mum's my coach, but if mum's saying, yeah, you're in good shape and people around me saying this, then, I feel like I'm absolutely unstoppable. So yeah, it's one of those things. Like before nationals, I was racing really well, training really well. And I just had this kind of mindset that I was so much better than everyone else. Yeah. It's, whether I was or whether I wasn't, I just felt like myself, I was better than everyone else in the field. And I kind of just, once again, I was still shit scared, nervous, warming up. I wasn't like scared, but very nervous, warming up and on the start line. But, I think in terms of like the preparation was just more doing things in training where it's like, yeah, shit, like, you did this better than anyone else probably would be able to, or you did this session and, you weren't able to do this a few months ago and stuff like that. So, I think the biggest thing for me is just building confidence. And, if nationals had been in January, I wouldn't have gone that great because I wasn't super, super fit. I was pretty fit, but I wasn't as fit as I was at nationals. I hadn't raced since Com Games and stuff like that. So, but then I had about 2 months to kind of get race ready and get my training in line. And yeah, I suppose there's not real like one answer which says like how do you get your mindset right. But I think just that's just part of being a professional athlete is just making sure that you get to the start line of every race being, with that mindset that you're just going to be an absolute dog and give everything you can. So
I reckon like when I was younger, I don't know if you were the same, you would look up to someone in your position or another elite athlete, and from the outside it just appears as though they've got it all together. They're running fast, they're living the life, they're just doing the things like your life would be perfect. But I'm sure that there's certain challenges that are unique to an elite athlete that a lot of people who aren't in your situation probably have no idea about. And I'd be interested, like, without giving away too many secrets, like what are a couple of the things, when you go and see a sports psych, what are a couple of things that you'll go over and say, hey, okay, like how can I improve this part of my mind?
I think, it's not really secrets, but I think one of the biggest things that the sports psych has said to my sports psych, or AA sports psych has said to me is that, he said it's a weird concept how, we go to a training track. We go to training on the track and we prepare, I'll be on the track for 40 minutes. And for those 40 minutes, I'll be preparing how to tolerate lactic, getting ready, building my aerobic engine. And, I'm struggling to breathe. My chest is hurting. I'll be 10 reps into a 400 meter session and on my 8th rep, I'm fighting through lactic. And, I know that going through 200 meters, I'm going to be filled with lactic and my legs are tired. And, you train to prepare to combat lactic acid or, your tight chest or whatever it might be. But at the same time, when we get nervous and we get anxious, our first reaction to it is, no, I'm going to try to push it away.
Yep.
I'm going to try to push it away. So I think that the biggest thing that his name's Jonah, like the sports psych said to me, is you have to invite that in.
That's great.
You have to invite it in. And the thing that he did for us, the thing that I think he does it for a few people is he kind of he does this weird thing where he makes you give it a name.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, so that anxiousness and that nervousness of a race, he gives it a name. So, say, for example, you might call it just make up a funny name.
I don't know, Popplestone.
The Popplestone. So he's like, the Popplestone's coming.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as soon as you give someone a novel way, it's like when you're competing against someone you hate and you say, oh, he's a bloody idiot.
Yeah.
And as soon as you kind of make it comical and a bit novel, it becomes less of a monster, it becomes less of like a foe type thing. So he says, give it a funny name and invite it in and just go, this is the way I should be feeling. Instead of pushing it away and saying, oh, I don't want to get nervous, bring it in and let it actually not take over you, but just, all right, it's here, embrace it and use that to your advantage. So that's one thing that I think that he did for me. I think another thing as well is he kind of just puts it into reality. Like the biggest thing I think for runners is a feeling. When you're warming up for a race, you have this idea of how you should feel. You should be feeling amazing, poppy, fresh legs. But normally when you're warming up, you're feeling shit out. Yeah. And he says, no one ever gets an Olympic gold medal for feeling good. So don't worry about it. It's more, his biggest thing is competence over confidence. So instead of saying, oh, I don't feel like I can run 3:35 today, just say, no, I'm competent enough to run 3:35. I've done it in the past. I've ran it a handful of times. My training indicates that. So, that's another thing. Kind of like, I suppose, I'm trying to think, like not even like mind over matter. It's more like matter over mind, I suppose. Like, forgetting feelings, forgetting thoughts, and actually thinking about the actual performance of it. And then he also puts it into reality. He just goes, look, for 4 minutes, you're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. Fuck. Like, so for 3.5 minutes of your life, you're going to feel a little bit shit.
Yeah.
And really, you're probably only going to feel shit for 2 minutes of it. So, it's just that it's just simplifying. I think when you simplify athletics, it becomes a lot easier. So I think that's another thing like that I've learned to do in racing and big races and stuff like that. Even at the Com Games, 40,000 people, all my friends are there, and I just had to think, I've ran 145 a handful of times. I just have to go and do that. So
that's awesome. I really like that point about just inviting it in. Just yesterday, I was listening to a book by. Have you ever heard of a lady called Pema Chodron?
No,
she's an American Buddhist teacher, and I don't know. There's just something about the way that she speaks that I really like. And I was listening to one of her talks yesterday, and she was telling this story about one of her close friends who every time he used to go and get a blood test, he would faint.
Yeah,
and. It was something that he said that he just knew without a doubt he was going to faint. So she said, okay, well, you faint every time you go and get a needle. Like, what do you do? He's like, oh, well, I just try and stop it happening.
Exactly.
And she said, okay, well, next time you're going, if you don't want to faint, let's try something different. She goes, get super, super aware of the process and get really curious about that discomfort. When you feel your body start to shake and the nervousness come in, start to really pay attention and go, okay, so this is the process towards fainting. And then before he knew it, he was paying attention. The needle went in. He's like, okay, sharp pain, a little bit. The blood was coming out, and then the needle was done. And he finished and he walked away and he goes, so my problem was I was trying to resist the inevitable.
Yep.
And without going on too much of a tangent, I think this is an interesting subject that I reckon a lot of people in Australia, like anxiety in schools is a huge thing. And I think one of the biggest problems is we just assume that it's an emotion that's unnatural, that shouldn't be there, when in fact it's one of the most natural things.
And it shows that you care about something as well. Like, I remember when I was younger, Dad was the one of the ones that used to say this to me, and it kind of stuck with me. I used to get nervous, and he just goes, well, it means you care about this. So if people aren't nervous before a race, when people say, oh, I feel great, don't even worry about it, I feel like they don't even care about it. But if you see me before a race struggling to put food in, struggling to get water down and stuff like that, it's like, all right, well, this fucking might mean something. So, yeah.
Is it something that you do struggle with? Like before a race, how do you go with nerves? Obviously, you invite it, you welcome it, you name it. But in terms of just training yourself to be able to go, okay, I need to get this food in, how do you overcome those?
I don't know. I don't know whether I've taught myself to do this or whether it's just a thing that I do now. But I'm always thinking about the races. Like, you know, I remember like national champs. Like I kind of was thinking out the final months in advance. That's just the way I am. I just always think about running and how I'm going to race and stuff like that. But I have this kind of, like, I suppose, ability to not really get nervous until like a couple of hours before, and that's usually when I get to the track and I'm kind of at the warm up track and stuff like that. So I feel like my nerves are only kind of present for maybe 2 hours or something like that. But yeah, I suppose that's the big thing. I kind of just take it on, and I just say, all right, well, this is the way that I'm going to feel.
Yeah.
I kind of like doing. I feel like I've done other stuff in the past where, in my warm up, whether it's, I don't know. I feel like I kind of used to do it almost to take the piss out of like my competitors a bit. But now when I warm up, I feel like I just like dance and sing along to my music and stuff like that. And it's kind of like a two-prong effect. Like, one, it kind of makes your rivals think, oh, fuck, he's pretty relaxed. And then at the same time, when you're singing and dancing and stuff like that and, you know, just having fun listening to your music, you kind of like, not that you're still present in the moment, but you kind of like not forgetting about the race just for a second and just kind of like enjoying it. So, yeah, I don't know. I deal with it. I don't know. I feel like, when I was younger, I used to struggle. Now I deal with it really well. And, I think the biggest thing for me is I usually warm up an hour before the gun goes, and I kind of like that. Once I'm able to warm up, I kind of feel like it's all in my control. And then the 2 hours, 3 hours before, when I'm a little bit nervous, I feel like it's like, fuck, I'm just sitting around, like I don't know what to do. So but yeah, I don't know. It's I don't really know how I deal with it. I'm just kind of know how to do it. Can't really put a label to it or anything.
It's such a unique or personalised thing, isn't it? Something I guess you could listen to 1,000 athletes speak about, okay, this is how you do it and this is why you do it. But until you get out there and actually find like a little bit of a routine for yourself, I guess it doesn't quite click. But I heard Tony Robbins talk about what you just spoke about as well, that whole idea of dancing before your gun goes.
I'm not going out and bloody doing it.
No. Like, having a bit of fun, just relaxed.
Because I just listen, like I suppose like before a race, I like to listen to either like rap music or like dance, like techno type stuff. So just kind of like, you know, just like jazzing along
like
to the
me
beat.
at the gym, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not going out and doing cartwheels, but yeah, just kind of, as probably you're at the gym, just like, you know, enjoying the beat and stuff like that. So.
So not quite Michelle Janicki or...
Not quite Janicki, no. No, probably not. Maybe a couple of celebrations similar to that, but no.
Yeah, man. What about, like, are there any particular questions that young kids do come and ask you? I guess when they have a chance to meet a hero and... like questions just would shoot out of their mouth as to, you know, is there anything that stands out to you that people are curious?
It's actually a funny one. Whenever I've spoken to a couple of primary schools in the past, and it was like after the Olympics, and they come up and they say, "Oh, so how many gold medals did you win?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, not many." I don't know. There's obviously a lot of like. Not uneducated, but people. So, what do you think about when you're running? Stuff like that type of thing. But I suppose trying to like a similar one that kids always ask. I don't know. I suppose just all like the stereotypical ones, like how do you deal with nerves? You know, like even what do you eat before races and stuff like that. And a common question from kids is, have you ever met Usain Bolt? Stuff like that. So it's kind of like.
Have you met him?
Yeah, I met him I met him at Nitro. And because we were like, and like stuff like that. But I mean, I've met him, but at the same time, he wouldn't even remember who I am. So I've shook his hand and said good day. We had a chat at Nitro. But if you were to ask him who's Luke Mathews, he'd say, so, but yeah, I don't know, not any particular ones, just kind of the stereotypical ones. Yeah, how do you deal with nerves? And, what do you do before a race and stuff like that?
You sound like, just in the conversation I've had with you for 20 minutes or whatever, you sound like a pretty well thought out, sort of logical kind of guy. Do you feel like you plan your training with your mum in quite a logical way? Like, how do you come up with a plan that you guys are confident is going to work and get you in the best shape?
Well, yeah, I suppose it comes down to mum just having 100% confidence in her and saying these are the sessions that we're going to do and stuff like that. But I don't know. I suppose leading into a year, we kind of think like 6 months in advance. That 6 to 6 months in advance, we're going to say, all right, we're going to be here. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. So I suppose it is pretty logical, and we have like a plan of we're going to do this at this time, and we're going to be here for this, and we're going to go to Falls Creek here. We're going to go to Europe here and stuff like that. But at the same time, you kind of have to go with the flow a little bit as well, because during the week there might be things like, I might pull up with a bit of a tight hammy, or I might a race might come up out of nowhere in Europe where we have to change training a little bit, and then there might be other days where you travel and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing for us is having a goal plan for like 6 months in advance to however it might be, but also being flexible enough to change it for whatever happens during that week. So mum's a type of person that likes to plan well ahead. So she'll often send me like a 2-month training program, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't even look at it, but she's got it. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah. So just you're allowed to rest easy knowing the fact that your mum's thought through it so well. And so what did that transition look like? Because obviously, as we said, you were with MTC for 3 years, did you say?
I was technically managed by Nick since I was like 17, because he started getting me some gear when I was, yeah. So I had a relationship with Nick for like 5 years, but coached for 3 years, yeah. Yeah,
and then it just got to a point where, okay, you needed a change, because from the outside, as I said, like you look in, and I know social media is so, it gives you a false idea of what's really going on, but from the outside, it just looked like, oh, far out, like this is the ultimate group, as if you would leave that. And then I heard pretty soon Luke Mathews has left the Bordeaux crew to go and train under your mum's sort of guidance. What led to that decision?
Oh, look, I mean, Nick Bordeaux, if you just Google his name, you can read hundreds of stories which probably don't paint him in the best picture. And, I had a great relationship with Nick for, I'd say just talking purely coaching relationship.
Yeah.
We had a great coaching relationship for, so 2.5, 3 years, however long it was. And, he took me I won 2 national championships under him. I went to the Olympics for 2 events. Almost beat Rhodesia under him. So we did a lot of good stuff.
That was a good night. I was there that night.
Yeah, I had a very good night that night. Yeah.
I can't imagine how you felt. I felt like it was a good night for me.
So I mean, we had a great working relationship. But it just look. I mean, if anyone kind of knows who he is as a person, he does have a couple of bad sides, I suppose. And I think just the crux of the issue was that, a lot of smaller arguments and fights and disagreements and stuff like that. But, we just stopped getting along, and I just got to a point where I kind of felt like enough was enough, and I decided to leave him. And look, I mean, if okay, yeah. Obviously at the time I was training with, I was in Spain at the time. I was training with Ryan Gregson, Stewie McSwain, Brett was injured that year, but I had this perfect group of training partners. And if you had said, I had a pretty much a perfect setup, but I just wasn't getting along with Nick anymore. And I kind of just had to say, is it worth sacrificing the group, the management, that really good team environment for my own good, mental health and my own, I suppose running career. Do I want to sacrifice that? And I felt like I had to. So it just got to a point where we weren't getting along anymore, and I felt like I had to move on. So I did. And then I dabbled with a couple of other coaches, and then because Mum used to coach me back in the day, and it just we kind of just had a chat, and was just like, I think that if, in terms of doing I just thought about the Commonwealth Games, because Commonwealth Games was in about 8 or 9 months from when I left, and I just thought if someone's going to get me to the peak of my powers at the Commonwealth Games, I thought it was going to be my mum. So I even remember thinking, maybe I'll train under mum until Com Games, and then maybe I'll find a different coach or something like that. But I feel like I did more than I ever expected under mum in the 2018 season, and then at Com Games, So I just felt like, it'd be absolutely silly of me to leave. So
Yeah.
I suppose that's kind of how it happened. But I'm training under Mum. She's coaching Morgan Mitchell now. Morgan Mitchell's bloody taking the 800 metre world by storm.
Yeah.
So, I think that I'm with one of the best coaches in Australia. Well, Justin Rinaldi might not hear in this, but I'm probably with one of the best 800 metre coaches in Australia.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, Mum coaches 50% of the qualified athletes for Doha.
Is that right?
For the 800, yeah. Me and Morgan, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
man.
Yeah,
So has that has just yourself and Morgan? I guess with the results, that's what I find interesting. Once results start to come through, Adam Diddick's a good mate of mine.
Yeah.
He coaches Jess Tringove, obviously a number of other good athletes.
Used to have Maddie back in the day too.
And I just remember speaking to him, and especially once Jess started to get like a little bit of a reputation and a bronze at the Commonwealth Games herself. Naturally, people start to spark up and go, okay, there's something going on over here that I need to know about. Do you feel like the attention has started to turn to your mum a little bit and people have started to go, hang on, like there's obviously something there?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll kind of tell a bit more in the next, I'd say, 12 months or so. But yeah, I think Morgan getting results on the board was probably more reflective of her than, I suppose, me, because, mum's my mum and we have a great relationship. And I think that a parent as a coach as a relationship is kind of it's a different type of relationship. So I think a lot of people would have thought, Luke's only going good because, Liz is his mum. Whereas now Morgan's getting the results on the board and thinking, shit, yeah, she does know her stuff. So, I think there's definitely been a bit more attention and a bit more respect to mum as a coach. She's got a lot of respect. She's got a heap of junior athletes, so there's obviously the respect is there. But I don't know. I mean, Mum officially just took on Sam McEntee.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
nice.
Because Sam's been kind of loosely training with me for the past, because he left Nick at the same time as me, so we've been loosely training together for the past 2 years. But she's officially coaching Sam now. So Sam's an Olympian. He obviously sees that Mum's a decent enough coach to get him to hopefully a Tokyo berth. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see leading up to Tokyo and then after Tokyo, kind of, how Mum is kind of seen as a coach. Because as far as I'm concerned, she's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, the results are speaking for themselves.
Yeah.
One of the things I was interested to ask as well is obviously, so you split with MTC, but with such a good group of mates in that group, did that create any tension amongst you guys, or were you guys like, do you still catch up with Gregson and run with those boys? Or is it...
No, not as much. I mean, I did the podcast with the Inside Running podcast with Brady and that, and I just said it's one of those things. It's like when you leave school, like, when you're in year 12, you see blokes every day. And you have these really good high school relationships. But then you leave school and you go from seeing them every single day to once a month, once every few months. Obviously, the relationship is going to degrade a little bit. So, I mean, when I was with MTC, I'd see those guys in Melbourne 3, 4, 5 times a week. When I was in Europe or Laguna in America, I'd see them every single day. So now when I only see them a handful of times every month or something like that, obviously the relationship isn't as good. But I don't know. It's definitely, like, I'm not going to say that my friendships with them are the exact same, but the ones that I was close with, I still am mates with. But yeah, it's kind of different because I suppose, Gregson, he's become like a rival now. I suppose, like at nationals.
Well, I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So like, so 2018 we raced each other in the Commonwealth Games 1500 final. I was dog shit that day because I was just tired from the 800, but. That was kind of I reckon that was pretty much the first time we've raced each other besides Com Games since I've left. So, yeah, that kind of that was pretty tense, and I did feel like it was a bit of a showdown. There was obviously other people in the race, but it was kind of a Mathews versus Gregson showdown, and it was pretty cutthroat and pretty intense. But I know it's just I just kind of have to remember that even though those guys, not that it wasn't like that at the same time, but. We're just going for the same spots now and we're fighting for the same thing. So, but at the same time, still got a lot of respect for all the guys in that group and I'm still mates with them, but it's just one of those things.
Because I watched the whole 1500 meter race, but I remember I was curious just to watch like the interaction between you two after the race, and obviously it's in the middle of a battle.
Yeah.
You've just finished. You're not necessarily up for a big chat, but I noticed there wasn't a whole heap of high fives and hugs going on after that. So I remember just thinking, I wonder, like, I didn't know if you guys were tight or what the story was, but I thought even if you were tight, I used to compete just growing up with, it was like you when you competed against the guys at Werribee. It feels like the whole world, but. One of my best mates, James O'Connor, and I, we used to be best mates. We still are, but we're best mates competing each other in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember so many times just feeling, I don't think this relationship's going to last because there's just so much emotion that goes into it. It's a hard relationship to maintain.
Yeah, like this is the way that I look at it. It's like obviously, I suppose it's even a little bit with like people like Deng and Bowl for the 800 and Josh Ralph. Like, I think when I'm on the start line and I just want to fucking smash those guys because I don't. Well, it's different as well because I don't train with them and stuff like that. So when I'm on the start line with those guys, I want to smash them. Same with nationals. I was racing Ramsden, Gregson, Rory Hunter. Wanted to obliterate them. I just wanted to beat them. That was my goal. But I think that sometimes in Australia we get a little bit small-minded in the sense that I have to go to nationals and beat Gregson, or I have to go to nationals and beat Deng or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, world champs, we're going to be racing 4 Kenyans, 3 Americans, a handful of Europeans. So if I'm worried about just beating some people in Australia, I'm going to get absolutely spanked when I go to world champs. So at the same time, it's just one of those things. Yeah, nationals might be intense for a couple of days, but you got to think bigger picture and think, if I'm just worried about two other Australians or 3 other Australians, well, fucking hell, like you're going to be pretty shit at world champs and the Olympics and stuff like that. So
I always find it interesting watching races, and I do notice quite a lot that countries seem to stick together in a race, and it's almost like they have an awareness of where their talent lies or where their ability lies. So it's almost hard to convince yourself that I'm just going to run against the Kenyans rather than run against Gregson or run against Deng or whatever. And that's one thing I've liked to watch about Stewie McSwain as well. It's like he's racing the people that you just mentioned. He's no longer thinking, okay, I'm going to try and beat Gregson. He's thinking, all right, I'm going to try and beat Cheserek or Ingebrigtsen or whoever's flying around the track at that moment. Yeah,
that's why I think like the biggest test for Stewie was going to be was like he ran some quick times last year, but I think his next, once again, like I feel like in this sport you're always like kind of going for the next thing. I think Stewie's next big test was trying to compete against the best 1500 and the best 5K guys, and he's holding his own, and he's throwing his weight around, and he's showing that he is fucking one of the best. So I think Stewie's doing it the perfect way. He's not worried about like in that 5K at London there was Pat Tien and Brett Robinson in the race, Morgan McDonald, a handful of people, but he was worried about trying to beat Jacob Ingebrigtsen. So it's just like, he's an example. Sally Pearson is another one. Like, 2017, she did our Australian season, but, she didn't really care too much about that. She was worried about going to London and beating the world record holder. So
Did you enjoy the lifestyle, man?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it does get a bit dry and boring sometimes. Like, when you're running at 9:30 and 5:30 every day, there's a lot of downtime in the middle, but I think you just got to learn to be bored and learn to kill time and stuff like that, which I've gotten very good at. So I've gotten really good at napping. I've gotten really good at Netflixing. I've gotten really good at going to the coffee shop and having 2 or 3 coffees and stuff like that. So I love the lifestyle. I have very normal friends in the sense that a lot of my friends are tradies, footy players, club footy players and stuff like that. And a lot of them have Sundays off, and a lot of them, don't have to train Saturday morning. So when I want to go out and have a couple of beers on a Saturday and stuff like that, I better expect to feel pretty shit on Sunday. So, I like the lifestyle. It's different to a lot of the people that I hang around with, but I do like it. And I think it's you kind of have to you kind of take it for granted sometimes. Like I remember when I was overseas and I was running pretty average. Oh, I mean, I was still decent, but just average for my standards.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my friends just said to me, he's like, Luke, like you just gotta chill out. You just gotta remember, like, you're in the middle of summer when we're all in Europe. When we're all in winter in Melbourne. You're in Europe. It's probably 30 degrees there. You're getting paid to run. you don't have to do anything. I've deferred uni for semester 2. You don't have to do university. All you're there is to sit on your ass and train. And I'm just thinking, and then at that point, I kind of just like got to relax a bit more and just thought, like let's go to these races. Like, let's travel to the south of France and do this race and have a bit of fun. Like, just stuff like that.
It's funny what gets normal, isn't it? Like probably 15-year-old you or 15-year-old me looks up at Olympian, goes, as we said before, like this is the lifestyle. And so quickly, like what's exciting can just plateau and it becomes the new norm.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool. It's interesting for me to hear that because far out, like it's a lesson I learn over and over again. Like there's no such thing as, okay, like now we've got the ideal life, because it's like our expectations are constantly. And I'm sure there's plenty of blokes you look at that it's like, oh, far out, if only I could just bloody run 3:28, and then you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that was another thing as well, which I never really, I definitely took for granted was going to the Olympics. Like, I suppose it's a good and a bad thing, training with MTC, because the expectation in that group is you're going to go to the Olympics and you're going to hopefully try and make a final or try and get a medal or whatever it might be. And because I was surrounded by 10 to 15 Olympians, training with them day to day, going to the Olympics it just felt like another race. So when I was there, I was just like, I'm at the Olympics, and I ended up running pretty shit. But then I kind of like got home, blended back into my normal friendship lifestyle for a little bit, and I kind of just like went back and I just thought, shit, like, I went to the Olympics for 2 events. I qualified at the age of 20. I went at the age of 21, and I went to the pinnacle of sport. But at the time, I'm just thinking, wow, I'm at this race where I underperformed.
Yeah.
But then I kind of take a step back and I just think, shit, like, I went to the Olympics. Like, so it's like, there's only like...
So do you have that feeling sometimes, you look at your life, you go, far out, actually, I ran at the Olympics.
Yeah,
That's cool, man. That's cool.
And it's definitely one of those things, like, just meeting, like, like, I want to hopefully get into the business world one day. I'm doing, like, a finance major, and just I've met a handful of people and managers and stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh, so it's just like, oh, then go to. I'm interested in them because they're in a really high role in whatever it might be, and I'm thinking, oh, this is what you do, and they're like, no, you went to the Olympics, and I'm like, no. So it is something sometimes where I just think, shit, like, I took it for granted. I'm not going to say I took it for granted, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I didn't really appreciate it as much as I did at the time, as much as I should have at the time.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it's like, that was something cool that I did. And now I'm thinking, hopefully I get to do it again, maybe a couple more times.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. You mentioned your mates before. I always love, I think it was the night that you came second to Rudisha. Yeah. You were right on his shoulder. And what was that? World Champs qualifier, Olympic qualifier?
Olympic qualifier, yeah.
And, mate, that was a fair posse. Fair posse you had there. So tell me the story there. Like, I feel like it's not uncommon for you as well. I've seen a few of your mates at some of your races.
Like I said, I've got a, I'm friends with a lot of athletes, and I've got great mates in the sport of athletics. But I feel like on a day-to-day basis, like tonight when I go and watch the footy, none of them are athletes, or none of them are track and field athletes. And I kind of started hanging around with a lot of those guys when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old, and they've become my best mates. And he's always been, Luke the runner, or whatever it might be. And I suppose you never really associate with athletics. You kind of never understand athletics until you go to an Olympic Games, I suppose. So, if I say to someone I got the national championships this weekend, they're probably thinking, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But when I say to my friends, I'm hopefully going to qualify for the Olympics, it's like, oh shit, okay, I get that now. So, that was I don't really. It's funny. I've done in the past. I've raced so many times in Melbourne, but I feel like now I hardly get to race in Melbourne. I only race maybe once a year, once every 2 years in Melbourne. So now, whenever I'm in Melbourne, I say to my mates, get down. So that was I'm not going to say one of the first times, because that was one of the times where all my friends
that was cool.
were at the race. And I just said, I didn't want to, I knew I was going pretty good at the time, but I just said, like, look, I think I'm a decent chance to qualify for the Olympics here. I'm in a pretty good position. And they all came. They it was one of my mates' birthdays that night, so they were all on the cans pretty early. And they And then they came and watched me, and I remember I didn't think they were going to come. I don't know why, but I was thinking, they're not going to. And then I just kind of blocked it out, warmed up and whatever. And then I'm on the start line and I see 15 of them right there, like at the, literally at the finish line. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. And then, ran well. I didn't even know what time I ran when I crossed the line. I knew that I saw Radisha ran 44.7 and I was only a couple of steps behind him, and I thought, it's definitely under 146. And then I ran straight over to them, and then, it was incredible. But another good one as well was, they've come to another couple of races as well, but another decent one was, I remember Commonwealth Games, the 800 metre final was on a Thursday, and a lot of my mates play footy on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And it's not that I ever brought it up as a conversation, but all of them said, "No, we're not coming, can't get time off, we got footy on Saturday, blah, blah, blah." And I was thinking, oh shit, like, not that I really care, but I'm just thinking, okay, like, none of them are coming, whatever. And then I remember I did my last hard session at Runaway Bay, and I got put in this private group message with I think there was about 8 or 9 of them, and I just go, "Luke, like, we've been taking the piss. We booked tickets months ago, so we're all going to be there." And I'm just thinking, like, I remember just looking at that. I was going really well, and I thought, at that time I thought, I reckon I'm a chance to win. And I remember just thinking, holy shit, like, I didn't expect, I didn't even know what to make of it. So got this text from my mates, and they go, we're not a chance, we're going to miss you on Australian soil, run at the Com Games. I'm thinking, far out. So then, and they all came, and I remember they, my mate called me and just said, "Look, like, it's no pressure. We're don't feel pressured to make the final. We're going to be," and I was like, "Mate," "if you are getting tickets to the fucking final of the Com Games, you honestly think I'm not going to make it?" So I ended up making it. And then I remember they all called me on the way to the race, and one of my mates said, this is where we're going to be. And it was like at the 50, 60 metre mark on the front straight. And I ran my race and didn't know where anyone else was in the crowd. Didn't know where my parents were, family were, but I just knew where they were. So I ran straight over them, had a big moment with them. And then my other friends were on the back straight. That same group of friends, but they were split up.
Yeah.
Saw them, and it was just...
What was that like, man? What was that like? This is that's obviously the highlight, or one of the biggest highlights of the athletics career, just to win a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games is a crazy achievement, and to see the race where you did it.
Yeah.
And the risk of, like, you've been asked this 1,000 times, but it's such an interesting question. Like, to come from so far behind, what has gone through your head there? Because with 200 metres to go, you're like, bugger, Luke, he's out. And then with 40 metres to go, hey, hang on, what happened there?
So like, going into the race, with how racing and training had gone, I honestly, I can hand on my heart say that I thought that I was capable of winning the race, and I thought that I was in a position. The way that I run my 800s is, I feel like I'm not quiet about my tactics at all. Like, usually with 250 to go or something like that, I'm trying to, put a bit of a gap in the field and go hard, because that's just strength. So, I thought, I said, spoke to Mum, and the tactic was to try, get up in the first couple, and then 200, 250, 300 to go, get after it. So I, on the back straight, I tried to get after it, and at the same time that I went after it, the Nigel Amos and the Kenyan accelerated at the same time. And I think at that point, when I didn't make the moves that I wanted to, I just tensed up a little bit.
Yeah.
And once you tense up in a race and you don't have that natural flow, you can go backwards pretty quickly. And I learnt that out pretty the hard way at Com Games, when I was in the box seat. I was right on Amos's shoulder, and then I moved back to third, to fourth, to fifth, and then I got to the top of the straight, and I kind of just had this microsecond thought. I just thought, fuck, I've put, me, Mum, Dad have put in all this effort to get here, and you might come last. And I remember at that point I pretty much just relaxed, and then I passed one person, passed another person, and then before I knew it, I passed the person who was in third and got myself into third and crossed the line. And it just kind of all happened so quickly that I kind of didn't really get to appreciate it for just a second. And I was like, what the hell's just happened? And then I'd look up in the scoreboard and the official results had come up and I'd come third and then yeah. So, I mean, the race itself was, something I hope never happens again in the sense where I tighten up and loosen up and almost start choking. Like it looked like I was about to choke a race and come last. But, to come third is, one of the greatest sporting achievements, one of my greatest achievements in sport to date. And then not only one, to have my mum as my coach to share that with, my family in the crowd, a few of my cousins, and then, my best friends in the crowd, and then essentially all of Australia watching. Pretty, I mean, if I could somehow replay that, say 2 hours of warming up to the hour after the race where I got to do the lap with the flag in third and see my friends. If I could somehow replay that moment again, I'd love to do it because it's, that was that, the next couple of hours after the race were just incredible.
I was at a wedding reception and I remember leaving to watch it on my iPhone. And I just walked in I felt like I was strutting. And my wife goes to me, "What's up?" I go, it's running talk. You wouldn't care. She goes, "No, tell me." I go, "Luke Mathews came third." And, mate, I can only imagine what that feels like, having everyone you love in that stadium after one of the best races of your life to date. Sure, there's plenty more to come, but that was a special night, man.
Another cool thing as well was, if you go to a World Champs and Olympic Games and stuff like that, and I think the coolest thing about the World Champs was I remember they introduced Mo Farah, they introduced Jake Whiteman, British athletes, and so they said Jake Whiteman over this stadium, and the whole crowd just went crazy. They didn't care who it was. They just knew that it was a British athlete and they were about to compete, and they just went crazy. And then I remember in the heat, they introduced me, and the crowd was just so loud. And then in the final, they introduced me again, and I was lane one, so I got introduced last, and it was ridiculously loud. So just the sound of knowing that, that people might not know who you were, but knowing that sound was for me. Well, there was also Deng Deng was in the final too, but knowing that sound was for two Australians was just incredible. Yeah, honestly, I really struggled to think that I'd get an experience similar to that. Even if I do the best I can in Tokyo and I win an Olympic gold, I mean, I'm sure that the emotions will be incredible, but everything connected, it was pretty hard to top that and even to speak about it and give it justice because it was...
Got goosebumps, bro. Yeah. That's crazy, man. I reckon the only... it's a crazy experience, especially to have that opportunity in Australia. Do you watch Mottram in 2006?
Yeah, I was in the crowd, yeah.
That was the same kind of thing. Did you watch his 5K?
Yeah, I was in the crowd for the fall and the 5K, so yeah.
Well, there's two separate roars. I remember... when Mottram took the lead with about 700 to go in the 5K, that roar was obviously not the same as the start line, but I remember just his energy in the crowd was
100,000 people as well. So
bro.
Double and then some. 1.5 times what Com Games had, Gold Coast had. So
that's unreal. That's unreal. And last couple of minutes, you're getting looked after by Under Armour now, which is to me awesome, but also hilarious because I associate Under Armour with The Rock. Yeah. Which is I'm not saying, bro, you're rocking a good physique, but The Rock would be in arm wrestle a lot. So is this a new kind of thing that Under Armour's doing, or have they got a few athletes under their wing?
Yeah, so it's definitely I've definitely learned a lot more about Under Armour in the past 6 months than I ever knew about Under Armour. Because my association with Under Armour was Anthony Joshua, boxing, The Rock, wrestling and movies, and then Steph Curry, Joel Embiid, stuff like that. So my association with Under Armour was never athletics, but their priority going forward is to make run their number one priority. So professional.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So so obviously they're not going to turn their back on basketball and football because that's the reason why they're the third biggest company in the world. But
they're the third biggest company in the world.
Yeah. Once again,
holy crap.
Yeah. So so yeah, like their priority going forward is for runs. So yeah, they're starting to get a pretty big team of professional runners. So I signed with them officially in I think it was about June. And then they've recently signed Morgan McDonald because me and Morgan have the same manager. And then as well as that, they've got Aisha Prout, who won the Commonwealth Games steeplechase. They've got Rachel Snyder, she'll be going to the Doha for the 5K. There's Pat Casey. There's a handful of athletes, and yeah, there's probably about I'm gonna say about 10 pro, maybe a bit more, maybe 10 to 15 pro Under Armour runners now, and yeah, it's still pretty new in terms of professional running.
Yeah,
but I'm hoping that, and it's also very new to have Under Armour in Australia because I feel like they've just got a big American presence. So, yeah I'm hoping that, because I am Melbourne-based and I do a lot of training here, hopefully I can get some young kids to be buying shoes. And
nice, man. Does your manager look after many other Australian athletes? I know Morgan McDonald, he's based in the States, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's just finished college and he's going to stay with his college coach. So he won't be in Australia too much, just to see his family, I'm assuming for like Christmas and stuff like that. But my manager looks after... So my manager works for a company called Total Sports, and then Total Sports essentially have two managers, and there's Stephen, my manager, and another guy called Chris, who... So from Australia, they have Jessica Hull, who just signed with the Oregon Project.
Sweet.
They have Georgia Griffith, Madeline Hills, I'm trying to think who else. Jenny Blundell. Yeah, so they got a few Australians, and hopefully it's going to get bigger and bigger. But it's
And does your manager, he get you into the races as well, or is he so he's not just looking after the money and the gear?
No. So he organises. Yeah, so like if I want to go to a training camp, and he'll organise accommodation and stuff like that, and then Europe, he organises all my accommodation, my travel, my going to races, and so. But that's why we pay him 15%. So
beautiful. He gets his little cut.
So every 15% for management in athletics is pretty standard. That's what Nick had. That's what Total Sports have. So that 15% means that you're paying them, but you're paying them to look after all your affairs, to get you into races. Contract negotiations with Under Armour, my past negotiation with Nike and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, sweet, man. Just before we wrap up, what do you do when you're not running? I know you said you're watching a bit of Netflix and you watch a bit of footy. Are you heading into the game tonight, are you?
I'm not going to head into the game. I'm probably just going to watch it. No, I don't
Who's
know.
playing? Who's playing tonight?
I can't even remember.
Yeah, I have to Google that.
Is it Melbourne, Sydney, maybe?
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, anyway, I'll probably go watch that with mates. But in my spare time at the moment, it depends where I am. Like when I'm in Melbourne, I try to just see mates during the day, nap, Netflix.
I love the nap part. So, what are you watching on Netflix?
I was gutted, but Animal Kingdom wasn't available in Belgium where I was living, so I've had to catch up on the new season.
Dude, I haven't even heard of it.
Oh, it's just a TV series. It's based off an old movie, which what's his name, Joel Edgerton used to be in. So it's kind of that's the inspiration for it. But now it's got 4 seasons. It's essentially one of those typical, crime empires with drugs and stuff like that.
Love it. Yeah.
So catching up to date. I think I'm up to date now. Other Netflix. I don't know. I just try to binge with Netflix.
Have you got Stan?
Nah, but I feel like I've got way too many subscriptions.
I've got too many subscriptions as well. If you get it, and for anyone listening, Perpetual Grace.
Okay.
Oh my God. Do yourself a favour. I've got too many subscriptions as well.
But spare time. A lot of nothing. When usually I have uni on, so deferred second semester, so I'm not worried too much now. But usually I do 3 semesters of university, so I'm usually plugging away in some notes or assignment or on some group assignment or a group call.
Any little ladies the athletics world needs to know about?
No ladies.
Stop it.
Still a bachelor. Still
far out. There's not too many good. I reckon you've got the title of best looking middle distance athlete. I reckon you're gonna have to watch yourself.
There's Stewie McSwain's running around at the moment.
Yeah, Stewie, he's a good looking unit as well. He's a good looking unit, but I reckon you give him a run for his money.
Yeah, well, he's when girls have speed goggles too, he covers me there as well. He's a 331 guy, so I can't compete with that. No girl.
I'm not even on the home straight yet, so I don't know. I'm lucky I'm married, I guess.
Yeah, no girls at the moment. So I know mum keeps harping on saying that I need to get a girlfriend and calm down and chill out and quiet down a little bit, but yeah, not for me.
Well, it's at Luke Mathews with 1T, ladies. If you're interested, I reckon have a couple of little looks through these pictures and they'll be signed up. No worries.
Oh, well, yeah.
I'm a married man and I was half tempted to buy you another coffee.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting treated.
Oh, bro. Well, Lukey Mathews, hey, mate, thanks for your time. Honestly, I could talk to you all day, but I'm going to let you go so you can go home and relax. But, hey, really appreciate it, brother.
Nah, thanks for having me, mate.
Awesome, man. That was good.